What's up, guys? So today we have a question by Wolfumz, I hope I pronounced that right, who's a prolific commenter. Again, another individual that constantly leaves, really good quality feedback for me. So thank you for that. I appreciate your support big time. So he says, I have a question. What would you say the number one thing people don't understand about selling drugs? That's an easy one. That it's easy. That it's something that's not difficult to do. That it's something that everyone can do, because that's not true at all. It's kind of looked at as like one of those things where it's like, oh, any moron can do it, and like sure, like anyone can go get an ounce of weed, break it down, and sell it, but like. It's one of those things that's easy to do, but it's hard to be good at. I think, if you do it right, because there's so many things that go into it aside from like accounting, profit, loss, like, so many moving parts. It's like running a clock. But then on top of that, it's like running a clock that people are trying to break in and steal the gears to constantly, and people are trying to blow up the clock while you're in it. That's like law enforcement trying to blow you up and put you in a box. A lot of anxiety, a lot of tension, a lot of work, long hours, and at the end of the day, I think a lot of the people who do so for the wrong reasons. They do it because they feel that they have no choice but to do it for economic reasons. And a lot of the people that do it, would be, I think anyone who gets caught for drugs that isn't addicted to them, should, instead of like saying, hey, here's 15 years, I think you should be like, hey, listen, it's mandatory that you do this business class, you have to get your bachelor's degree. And if you don't, then you go to prison. I think if you did that, I think those people who have that ambition, have that drive to sell drugs would end up being very beneficial to society instead of going down that wrong path because they saw, some vicious sociopath, that used to drive around their neighborhood in a Benz or a BMW, and that was like their role model, was kind of like that hood star or that dope man, you know what I mean? Like, I think replacing that with education and showing them, these people who have a natural tendency to get money, how to do it and how to do it in a calculated, almost scientific way, would greatly benefit society instead of sticking them in a box and charging the few producers in society more taxes to sponsor these people's incarceration. My thoughts on it. What is the most people get totally wrong or totally backwards when they imagine the life of someone moving a lot of weight, or a darknet vendor for that matter? That it's fun, that it's something that, the person doing it, they decide to do it and they automatically are like this multi-millionaire. It's very far from the truth. There's been more than a few times where I've been like scraping together money for shipping. It's like, well, how is that possible, dude? Like, you're selling drugs again. Like, there's a lot of accounting that goes into it. There's now granted, like, I send out these packages, I might be like, $40 short on sending out 200 packages, but once these 200 packages clear, like, I just profited 10 grand, never mind the rest of the money that's coming back. And like, I wasn't a drug addict, so it's hard. It's like any other business, but I think a lot of people think that because it's illegal and there's less paperwork that it makes it easy, and it's not true. I think a lot of people, when they envision darknet vendors, they envision someone that's extremely evil. And I don't think that's the case in my case. I think I just made a bad decision. And that's what it is. So, how concerned were you about the violence of the drug market? So I personally witnessed violence. So there's no violence, as a darknet vendor, there is no violence. It's not something you have to deal with. It's cash in, cash out kind of business. You're not meeting anyone. So there's a firearm involved in my case, VZ58, which is manufactured here in Vermont by a gun manufacturer called Century Arms, who's phenomenal. And basically a VZ8 is like, it looks like an AK-47, right? And the one that I had a full tang bayonet that attached onto it. Scored it. It was like $900. Not saying I bought it, but it was $900. It came with 430 round clips, cleaning kit, the gun itself, and the bayonet. Up here in Vermont, 3 years ago, something like that, you used to be able to hop on armslist.com and like look at it like Craigslist, and there might be like, say there's an AK, right? It's like AK for sale, $800. And like I email that guy that has that AK up and I say, hey man, I'm interested in the AK, I'd like to buy it. And he says, okay, meet me at, I don't know, John's Fish Mart. So like I go to John's Fish Mart at a certain time, certain day, and like I meet him in the parking lot. I say, here's the 600. He says, okay, here's the rifle. I check out the rifle while he checks out the money. Then I show him my Vermont ID. And because it's a personal sale, there was no, I think they changed it now, but there was no background check required. So like, all you need to know is that I have a Vermont ID. You look at it, you see it's a Vermont ID. Okay, you're good to go. You write out a bill of sale. I sold Sam Bemp this gun on this day at this time. Now I get that bill of sale. So if you just used it to murder someone, I can prove that I wasn't the guy who used it to murder someone, even though the ballistics would come back like, yeah, it was that gun that was used to kill this person. So and like I have this firearm, and like, no one knows, which is awesome because, it's honestly, it's no one's business what you own. And if I'm a criminal, at the end of the day, you having gun laws that require registration or background checks aren't going to stop me from owning a gun. It's going to stop you, like the law-abiding citizen, from owning a gun. But the criminals don't care about the laws. That's why they're criminals. Gun laws are not going to affect criminals getting guns. Even in countries that have complete bans on firearms, people still get shot. It happens. Like, that's just what it is. And then now those guns that are in circulation are worth even more money because they're illegal. It's a stupid idea, in my opinion. Anyways, way off topic. So I personally witnessed violence. I met a lot of sociopaths and psychopaths that were drug dealers, just complete whack jobs who masochists, like all kinds that are attracted to that kind of that kind of profession. Then you have those kinds, and you just have like the economically desperate people who are just trying to make it, trying to get by, when gas is $5 a gallon. I mean, like, it's what it is, Did you have much concern keeping yourself secure, not from LEO, which is law enforcement, but from other people in the black market? Not as a darknet vendor, as like a street dealer, like when I was younger, like in my teenage years, yeah, for sure. Like, you have to worry about getting jumped by the people you're selling to. You got to worry about getting jumped by your suppliers. You got to worry about getting, attacked by the cops. Like, you have literally enemies on every side of you, and that's why I say, like, the people who have made a go at moving narcotics and have been successful in market conditions like that. I mean, they could go to pretty much any organization and be a joke, trying to sell life insurance when, like, you were just in a market where someone will cut your throat for like that $40. Compare that to like selling, guys selling life insurance. Like, it's a joke, right? So Yeah, that's my opinion on it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.